And on to number 4. This one's a little more surprising, I think, for people, but for me, it's a hello, and welcome to episode 1 of the bodybuilding series. Today, I want to kick it off by discussing genetics. Yes, genetics. I know a lot of people are going to get pissed off about what I have to say about genetics. People usually go a couple different ways when I talk to them about genetics. They either get really pissed off because they think I'm offering it as an excuse to why they can't progress, or it's on the opposite side of the coin where a person with really good genetics is accusing me of saying something like, well, the only reason why you look like that is because of your genetics. So they're thinking I'm dismissing their hard work, which I'm not at all. I'm just saying that they have a predisposition to do really well in the sport. So before we start on my top 5 list of what I consider the most important genetic factors for bodybuilding, I want to offer some advice on comparing yourself to other people. So I really like the phrase compare and despair. So when you see somebody that you look up to, maybe they're way more swole than you are, they're way more cut than you are, more vascular, or just somebody that you aspire to be like, keep in mind that they're their own person and you're your own person. So comparing yourself to other people just really isn't fair to yourself. You're going to waste a lot of time worrying about how to become like that person. What kinds of things are they doing that I could probably do to look more like them? And it's just not a good road to go on because there's a lot of depression that goes along with it. And it's just not an overall great place to be. I know it's really hard to accept ourselves the way we are. And if you're in the sport of bodybuilding or lifting weights or into fitness, we all aspire to be better versions of ourselves, which is amazing, and I think that's how it should be. But the comparing and despairing to other people just isn't necessary. It's going to impede your progress, and you're just going to spend a lot of time worrying about something that you have zero control over. So with that being said, let's get into my top 5 list of genetic factors that I think play a huge role in bodybuilding. So number 1, what I think is a really, really important genetic factor is the ability to gain lean tissue. This factor can be incredibly discouraging for some people. So they'll tend to look at other people that are huge, and they'll look up to them, thinking that they kind of have this secret answer or this magic pill. And if I go talk to them and they tell me what they're doing, I'll get as big as they can. But that's simply not the case for some people. If you don't have that genetic trait, I call that the mass gene. So some people just don't have that mass gene, and that's okay. You just have to work with what you have, and that's completely fine. If bodybuilding is an interesting thing that you want to pursue, there's other places that you could fit. It doesn't have to be just bodybuilding. There's physique, classic physique. There's even the master's classes and things like that. You will find your place in the sport. A really disheartening thing that I've seen happen throughout the years as I go from different places and different gyms is it's almost like a lie that's being sold to people in the fitness industry. If you do XYZ just the way this person did it, then you're going to get those exact same results. But that's just not true. That person's genetics allowed them to get like that. And you may have that same set of genetics to allow you to do that, but most likely you're not going to be the same as that other person. So your results will vary. And I think that a lot of the younger generation and the kids, they kind of look up to these fitfluencers, and they're just kind of selling them this lie that you just got to do what I do to be like me. And that's just simply not the case. So again, I just want to encourage you to not compare and despair yourself against other people. You have your own unique set of genetics that you're working with. And that, to me, that's freaking beautiful, man. Like, just keep doing you, and the results will come if you keep going. The next genetic factor is a big one. For me, it's symmetry, and there's a whole bunch of different like pieces in the symmetry genetic that I want to talk about. It's going to be things like joint size, bone structure, where your insertion points are on your muscles, and things like that. Symmetry in bodybuilding is a huge factor. That's one of the things that you're judged on with the criteria. So having a very symmetrical body is key in this sport. Also, having smaller joint sizes in comparison to the muscle bellies makes them look that much bigger, so it's more impressive, especially when it's teamed up with the previous genetic factor, building lean muscle tissue. It's a pretty good winning factor. Now, kind of a difference between genetic 1 that we talked about with lean muscle tissue and symmetry genetics as far as like insertion points, let's say. even with kind of shittier genetics on the lean muscle tissue building, you're still going to have the ability to gain some lean tissue. But let's say with the symmetry genetic, there really isn't a whole hell of a lot you can do about the insertion points of your muscles. After one of my shows, for example, one of my friends was looking at some of my show photos, and he was looking at my lats and where they insert, and he was like, well, he's like, I think you're pretty good, but he's like, I need your lats to come a little bit further down here. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll just fucking call my surgeon and then we'll just reattach them. So that's the kind of shit you can't help where your insertion points are. But like I said before, you can start building muscle even if you have shittier genetics for muscle building. Also with symmetry, if you have the really tight little waist and then you have the big broad shoulders, you'll get that nice V taper they're looking for, especially in classic physique. So that's just another genetic trait that really helps you out in this sport. The next important factor, number 3, is the ability to burn fat. Now, we're all going to have the ability to burn some fat, but there are just some individuals that are able to just burn tons and tons more fat than, let's say, more of an average genetics when it comes to fat burning. We all had that friend in high school that had like a fucking 6-pack and he did like no work at all, ate like shit, and you're just kind of left wondering what the hell is going on. So that's a huge genetic factor in bodybuilding as well. The ability to quickly lose fat, the amount of fat you can lose, and you team those up with the symmetry and the lean muscle building, and you really are starting to get to a winning factor. And on to number 4. This one's a little more surprising, I think, for people, but for me, it's a huge one. And I would say, how injury prone are you? You can have top tier level genetics on those other ones we discussed, but if you're really injury prone, that's really going to impede your progress on the other ones. So if you're always getting hurt, you can't lift. And if you can't lift, you can't grow. I have seen a lot of dumb shit at the gym where people load up the plates and they're really getting into ego lifting, and nothing they do seems to hurt them, and that they're not very injury prone. Then you see the next person like myself, they get injured all the fucking time, and like I said, it really impedes progress. So that's a huge genetic factor, I think, that plays into this. And last but not least, and this is going to only be for a few of you, maybe more, is your drug response. How well do you respond to PEDs? Now, if you're going to go down that route, I don't recommend, because first of all, they're illegal in the United States without a prescription. But let's say you do go down that line. There's a lot of different factors that fall into place here. I'm a huge proponent of less is more. And some people, when they have really good genetics, they respond really well to fewer drugs, which is also a genetic factor. Think of it this way. So you have one friend that has a headache, and he's like, man, I take like 10 fucking Advil and the headache is like still there. And then you have another friend that's like, man, I like sniff an Advil or a Tylenol and my headache is gone. So their body has different responses to those drugs is a huge factor in how this all works. But I also want to add, PEDs aren't a magic pill either. Yes, they are very potent, and yes, they do work, but they may only add 10 to 15% to what you already have now, which is huge. But I think a lot of people go into them expecting them to be 50 to 75% more than what they have. And that's simply just not going to be the case for nearly everybody that uses them. I know a lot of people that use them that you wouldn't even be able to tell they use them at all. So be careful who you get advice when using or considering using PEDs, because some of the people that respond really well to them, they might not know what they're doing. They're called the dark side for a reason. So if you're going to consider doing them, make sure you do your research, because you could end up hurting yourself with them in the long run. But that being said, it'd be foolish to think that drugs don't play a huge role in, especially on non-tested shows and organizations. They play a huge role in it. And I think a lot of people just need to keep their expectations a little bit more realistic, because they might not do what you think they're going to do to you. Some people are hyper responders and they blow the fuck up by using them. And some people, they just get, a little bit, helped a little bit. Later on in the series, we will be talking about PED usages, but we'll leave it at that for now. So I hope this list helped you a little bit in considering your own genetics for a bodybuilding contest that you're going to sign up for. And again, I want to offer some encouragement. If this is something that you really want to get into and you don't think you have some of these top 5 genetics that I'm talking about, and there's plenty more to discuss as well, but these are kind of my top 5 list. Let's say you're not hitting all of them. It's okay. You don't have to be to enjoy the sport. Some of us have to work twice as hard to get half the results. And I'm proud of you guys for doing that, because to me, that's fucking brave. It's brave to be able to keep making progress slowly and watch somebody else make progress at lightning speeds. So that's my top 5 list that I wanted to discuss as far as genetics. In the next episode, I would like to talk about the different bodybuilding divisions: bikini, fitness, figure, classic physique, men's physique. And I want to discuss what the judges are going to be looking for in their criteria. So until next time, I'll see you then.